terrible. How's everyone doing? All right, good. So we're starting a new series now. It is called In the Beginning, and it's all about the beginning of the Bible and where we got our start. And it's from stories like the creation of the world to the story of Cain and Abel. We have Noah's rainy day in the big boat. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Abraham. These are some of the classic early stories of the Bible, early stories about our faith. And we want to talk about these because a lot of people don't always know where to start in the Bible, so we figure what better place to start, right, than in the beginning. So today we're going to start talking about creation, the creation of the world, and how it came to be. So I'm going to go back in history a little bit and just tell you a little bit about how the earth started. So, millions and millions and billions of years ago, matter, I suppose, came together and started spinning, and it spun so fast that it eventually burst, and we got the Big Bang. You guys have heard that term before? Yeah. We got the Big Bang, and from the Big Bang, we got the stars, we got the moon, we got the planets, all the solar system, and all those other things that are up there, and that's where all matter came from. And then somehow, there was atoms, I think, that started forming, and they were single-celled organisms, but then they started growing into more celled organisms, and then they became like these little insect characters, I'd imagine, and then they got a little bit bigger to these small animals that were probably swimming with gills and stuff. And then after that, I believe they crawled out onto the beach, and then they got regular lungs, and then they formed into probably like a sloth, maybe. And then from the sloth, we got like the monkey-ish type character that we kind of see, maybe like an orangutan with the big arms, I'm not sure. And then from there, we have what you see before us. Well, the humans, not me, but humans. So, that is called evolution, a very, very simple version of evolution, and that's what a lot of people learn in public school, or a lot of people will learn in life, or whatever, but that's not what the Bible says at all. So that's what school says, that's what a lot of other things say, but I'm here to tell you a little bit about what the Bible says and how we got started. So, I brought a little visual aid. It's mighty. The visual aid. Wait. Alright, there we go. Let's move this. Alright. Can everyone see? Everyone have a good, no good. If you can't see, try and see, because this promises to be hilarious.
No, it's hard to read.
Can you see it? In the beginning. Alright, so, here we go. Where's my pointer? Got it. Okay, so, in the beginning, we figure that's a good place to start, right? Okay, so, I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of an artiste. Pretty good. I'm not great, but you're going to see I'm pretty good. So, I'm going to start with just showing you a little self-portrait of myself. There it is. It's zoomed out, so you can't really tell. But I'm right about there. You guys are all there with me. There's my self-portrait. I like that. Alright. So, this is really zoomed out. I also have another self-portrait, really, really zoomed in. Right here. You can tell it's me because it's a sippy. You know? And my pinky's out because I'm fancy, you know? I'm still not sure that you can actually look cool drinking a sippy cup, but I've tried so many ways. So, well, let's get to it. We have, you guys know the classic, or hopefully, well, maybe you don't know, the classic, the beginning of the Bible. Can somebody say it out loud? The first sentence of the Bible? Meredith, I'm counting on you. What is it?
Me?
Yeah, what is it?
It starts in the beginning.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is not to scale. But here we have the earth, and here we have the heavens. I'm not sure if you noticed this, but if you notice the earth, the land and waters got switched when I asked somebody to color them in. So we have Antarctica as ocean on the bottom. Yeah. So it's not exactly perfect.
Earlier time it wasn't frozen.
So, that's, in the beginning God made the heavens and the earth. Now, but in the beginning the earth did not look like this. The earth, it says in the Bible, was formless and void. So this is earth, early on. It's just void. There's nothing going on. It just says the earth is there because God spoke it, and that's how it started. But then God said those very, very famous words, which you hear all the time, let there be light. Ching. There you go. There's a light, and there's the beginning of the earth. This is day one, where God made heavens and earth, and then he added a light to it. So here we go with God's big light. I'm sure that's how it was. Then, after day 1, we have day 2. Right? So day 2, what God did is he separated the waters from the sky. So you can see very clearly, here's our water, and there's our sky. Yep. So, that's day 2, that's the end of day 2. And then at the end of day 2, God said, it was good. See? Yeah, I'm not sure why they gave me a yellow nail. Is whoever said that? I appreciate the coloring, I really do. But God saw that it was good. So then, after day 2, we have then day 3. And day 3, God, he separated the waters from the land, and he called the waters sea, and he called the land land. And he also made all kinds of vegetation for us to eat, or for someone to eat, I suppose. Here's a tree. I believe those are coconuts. And, but he also made all other kinds of fruits and vegetables and things that we can eat and other things like that. Here's a picture of them, some of them. This is 2 of them. Am I the only person that thinks they named oranges before they named carrots?
Yes.
All right, well, we got, what's this? It's orange. What do you want to call it? Let's call it an orange. What about this one? Long pointy? So then we have day 4, where God created the great lights. One to govern the night, the moon. You can see he's a little sleepy here. And then this happy little character is the sun. We also have the stars here. This one's awkward. You can kind of see, he even feels awkward just being up there. But these are the great lights that that God made to govern our light, to govern our earth. So it was interesting if you think back. God said, "Let there be light," before there was even sun and moon, which is a problem for evolutionists and it's a problem for a lot of other scientists, not a problem for us, because we believe in an almighty God. After that, day 5, we have God made all the creatures of the sea and all the birds or the flying things in the air. My friend is a really, really good artist. He did a lot of these things for me. I did the fish and the birds. Oh. The birds are very easy. They're just M's. That's all it is. Maybe a 3 if you're on the side. Either way. So it's not just the birds and the fish, but all living creatures. So this is, you know, whales and Loch Ness Monster and sharks and other bottom feeders, I suppose. I don't know. And then, you know, birds, seagulls, pterodactyls, which begins with a P. Has anyone ever noticed that?
Red hawks.
There's crazy red hawks. Red hawks, apparently. Is that your college? Is that what you're saying? Yep. Okay. Also, on the next day, day 6, God created animals. So, here we have some animals, just a random assortment of animals. Here we have a moose. This beaver appears to be jumping here. There's a horse, clearly. And this is a cat dog. I'm not sure what he is. But he looks happy nonetheless. He looks a little like the Lorax, yep. He also made giraffes. Oh, excuse me. Made giraffes. 4 different people it took to color this. So you'll see different shading all around. Very good. He looks very, we'll say, inquisitive. Yeah. All right, and just to kind of show off some of my other drawings, here's another animal. It's kind of a nondescript. You know, who knows what we had back then. This guy probably went extinct because he doesn't know what he is. We're all kind of confused just looking at him. You know, isn't he kind of adorable in a way, though? Oh, normal? All right. So this is a very nondescript animal. Who knows what he is? Here's another one of my drawings that I'm very proud of. It's a porcupine. I didn't get to finish it. Just an unfinished porcupine, but pretty good. After that, we have a polar bear. Okay. Maybe a polar bear like a snowstorm.
A snowstorm.
All right, so then, the other part of day 6, God created this guy. Man, there he is. No, that's not, yeah, those leaves. You know it's Adam because the leaves are very strategically placed. So this is day 6, that's not here, but he made man on this day. And so that's Adam. He's a very chummy guy, very toothy. And then after this, God saw what he did. He was very, very pleased with it. And well, here we have that God saw that it was very good, right there. It's a really big thumb with a halo, because that way you can tell it's God's. But after that, God saw that it was good, and on the 7th day, he what? He Z'd. That's right. He rested on the 7th day, because he can do that. He did that quick, and then, yeah. So after that, after God rested and they had week 2, I suppose, it was Adam's job to start naming all the animals. They brought all the animals to Adam, and whatever he decided to name them, that was going to be their name forever. So I'd imagine he called this one Mike. That's probably Phil. He looks like a James, I don't know. And this guy, he doesn't know what he is. Why does he keep showing up? He's even confused. Why am I here? Yeah. So, then, after he went through this, he saw that none of these animals were suitable for him as a mate, I suppose. So he said, well, what should I do? What did he do? He made a counterpart for Adam. He had Adam fall asleep, and he took a rib out of Adam, and he made Eve. Yeah. So there's Eve. We didn't finish our drawing, because who knows? Yeah. But they fell in love, I'm assuming. It doesn't say they fell in love, but they probably did. And so that's what happened. There they go. And they lived happily ever after. That's the story of creation. Can somebody grab this and move it for me?
Oh, I got it.
You got it? All right, here we go. They do live happily ever after. There we go. They live happily ever after for a few verses. And then, if you know what happens after that, it goes kind of downhill from there. But that's the story of in the beginning. And those words in the beginning, which we're going to be talking about a lot the next couple weeks, those are the 3 words that start the greatest story of all time. The absolutely, like, the story that you want to read, that you want to get through, most impressive, greatest book ever written, that's that. So, let's see, where do I go from there? That leads to this, an apple, right? Well, to be honest, to be fair, we don't actually know if it was an apple that was in the Garden of Eden, but for visual purpose sakes, we'll just go with an apple because it's in my hand. And so God set up this place called the Garden of Eden, and we have a fairly accurate depiction of the Garden of Eden. Do we have that up? Wait for it. There it is. I'm not sure if it's to scale, but it's probably about what it is. This is pretty good, yeah. So, God set up the Garden of Eden to have fellowship with us. Because he wanted to have fellowship with Adam and Eve, and so Adam and Eve could have fellowship with each other. And God was a great host. He had basically no rules at all. He pretty much just had one. He said, you can do whatever you want, just don't do this one thing. There's all kind of trees, there's all kind of plants and vegetations that you can have, and you can eat, and they're good for food, but don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So you figure, all right, that's easy. You're one rule, don't do it. No problem, they're not going to have any problem holding to that. But of course they don't. Almost instantly, they messed that up because Adam is like a 7-year-old boy who's instantly like, if your dad says don't do something, you want to do it anyway. Yeah, so that's them. But they said, they gave God the thumbs up, and they said, hey, you can count on me. You don't have to worry about it. But then, this little guy comes into play. Ooh, I like that picture because he looks really creepy. But this little guy comes into play. And some people say that the serpent was the devil. I'm okay with that. I think that helps out the story. So if that helps you remember, then go with that. But it does say in the Bible that the serpent was more crafty than the other animals. And apparently, he spoke. Serpents used to speak back in the day because he questioned Eve. In Genesis 3:1, we're spending a lot of time in Genesis. It says, "Did God really say you must not eat of any tree in the garden?" See, the serpent didn't just come up and say, "Hey, quick, God's not around. Let's do this," or whatever it is. He questioned them, and he tried to instill doubt into Eve first. And isn't that funny? Because that's how it is often. It's not always like just to do like the blatantly the wrong thing, but he'll get us to do those little things to get us to pull slightly away from God. And it's not always those big things, but it's those little whispers, right? So that's what he did exactly with Eve. And it's kind of funny if you think about it. After all these years, the devil is exactly the same then as he is still now, because I don't think the devil's really all that creative. But he found out what works a long time ago, and it's just that those little things that there was instilling doubt. And he found that it works, so he just does it over and over and over to each and every one of us. Just to get what he wants. And what he wants is us to be separated from God, to be separated from Jesus. That's That's Satan's goal. That's been the goal from the very, very beginning. Eve had a fair rebuttal to the serpent. Did God really say that? It says, Eve said, God did say, you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die. The serpent says, you will not surely die. The serpent said to the woman, For God knows that when you eat it, your eyes will be open, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. See, the serpent is basically saying, listen, God's a big old liar. Like, he's just saying that to get you to do what he wants so you can't see the truth and you can't be like him. See, Adam and Eve didn't know that the serpent had other plans in mind. And we don't often realize that the devil has other plans in mind when they want you to do those different things. That we might think that they're these tiny little things, but the devil has in mind that, hey, do this little thing and it could totally ruin your life, absolutely. But it's those little whispers like, hey, do your own thing. No one's really going to care. Or it's just a small thing, like, who's going to find out? And it's always those little whispers, you know? And he finds that it works, so he just does it over and over. After that, it didn't really take too much convincing for Eve to take a bite of the fruit of the apple. And just so we're clear, Eve did this all on her own. She decided, I'm going to be an independent woman and make my own decisions. And she took that bite totally by herself and then tricked Adam. I think that's how it goes. I'm not sure.
Sounds right.
It sounds right. You're right. Yeah. So that's what a lot of people will say. You put the blame on the women. But that's not the case at all. Adam, the big man, he was right there with her. And he's not innocent at all. And it says in verse 6, Eve took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband, who was with her. And he ate it. So, it was a two-person show, just so we clear Eve's name. Sometimes she gets a bad rap. But right after that, they heard God walking around in the garden, which I think is amazingly cool, just the fact that God was walking around in the garden, because that's how it was before then. That's cool to think about. But they hid from God because they were naked, as you can see in the photo. Okay, yeah. I wanted to make sure they didn't put up a different photo. But when God said, why are you hiding? He says in verse 10, Adam said, I heard you in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. And God said, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from? I think that's great. Because before that, naked wasn't even a thing. But they were told that they were naked, so I guess they felt, well, it says that they felt shame, so they hid. And it doesn't say that the serpent told them that, but that's my guess. So Adam, right away, he said, I love it, get the blame off himself right away. The woman you put me here with, she gave me the fruit from the tree, and I ate it. He was so quick to pass the blame. But Eve did the same thing. She said, the serpent deceived me, and I ate. God was really quick with the punishments. He said, don't do this, you did it. Instant punishments. It's funny how that works sometimes. But it says that God punished the serpent to live a life crawling on the ground and eating dust. That was his punishment. Some people say that they think that the serpent had arms and legs before this happened, and that maybe he was like a lizard-type creature, but then this happened, so he was punished, and he became the serpent, just the snake. Other people believe that he was this amazingly beautiful creature. That's how he got Eve to trick him. Either argument's fine. I don't care either way. But either way, it's a serpent now, which is what we can see as the snake. And that seems like a terrible existence. And my guess is that he couldn't speak after that either. But whenever I see a snake now, I always think, I'm like, oh, you guys messed up. You messed up. So they got punished, the serpent got punished, but it was way worse for Adam and Eve, and in turn for us. God kicked them out of the garden for their punishment. And for Adam, for man, it was that we'd have to work the fields and toil in the ground so we could eat. That was our big punishment. By the sweat of our brow, we'd have to eat from now on. I guess before they would just pluck it and eat. The women, their pains in childbirth were greatly increased. So that stinks. Sorry, ladies, but I think we made out better in that deal. But you can blame me. So, that was the fall. That's the fall. You're going to hear that word a lot, that term a lot. The fall of man. That's when we fell from God's grace. That was a big turning point in the Bible. And for those of you that are familiar with the fall, you can hear that word and not really think much of it. But the fall was an extremely big deal. It's the biggest event in the Bible up to the cross. But before that, it's the biggest event in the Bible. It's what started it all. And what the fall meant is separation from God. They were kicked out of the garden. They were no longer with him. They no longer walked with God. And the reason was because of their disobedience. Adam and Eve had full access to God absolutely whenever they wanted. They would just yell to him, or they would probably eat together or whatever. But they would walk around the garden. But, of course, they didn't know what they had until it was absolutely gone. And when it was gone, it was gone for good. Because God, he can't be around sin at all. It's just his nature. He can't be around it. So he couldn't hang around anymore, and we lost that because of Adam and Eve's sin. And today we continue to lose it because of our sin. See, if we have sin in our lives, God can't be around it. And it says that in his word, that God can't be around sin. But he wants to desperately be around you. And that's why it didn't end with the fall. If it ended with the fall, the Bible would have been very depressing, would have been about 6 chapters long, and that's it. But it didn't end with the fall. No. If it did, we'd really be in trouble. Because Adam and Eve broke that covenant with God, and now we needed a new one. And a covenant is simply an agreement that God makes. Well, a covenant means agreement, and the covenant with God is one that God makes with man. And there's a few covenants in the Bible. We have the Adam and Eve one. We have one where God made with Noah, and we have others in the Bible. But then we get to this point later on in the Bible where God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, and that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. One of the most famous verses in the Bible, John 3:16. If you don't know it, I encourage that you memorize it. It's really, really easy. It kind of flows. You can read it at sports games. It's really cool. And that verse, many of you have heard many, many times. And some of you have heard it so many times that it almost begins to lose its meaning a little bit. And I want you guys to read this verse. It's still up. Read this verse as if it's the first time you've ever seen it. So, God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. Because this verse changes everybody's life. Every single person. Not it should change everybody's life. Not that it could change every person's life, but it does. It changes every single person's life in this room, in this world. And the reason for that is because we are all sinners. Hear me, every single one of us are sinners. We're dirty, rotten sinners that deserve nothing but hell.
Come on, Eve.
Yeah, right? But that's what we deserve. We don't deserve to be in God's presence. Because we, as ourselves, we could never be that perfect sacrifice that God requires. We could never be it. And no matter what we did or could do, it's not enough. It's never enough. It will never be enough, because on our own merits, we're going to fall short every single time. And honestly, it took me a long time to realize that I was a sinner. Not so much that I was a sinner, but really to the extent of my sin. And because everybody has sin in their life, but if you don't really recognize it, you don't really understand exactly what that it means. So when I started realizing what extent of sinner I am, that's when it kind of comes into reality of oh, I cannot do this on my own. I need somebody else. Because we don't really see ourselves as sinful people. We can look at other people and think, oh, they're sinful. Oh, that guy? Oh, yeah. But that's really easy to do. But when we look at ourselves, we're I'm doing pretty good. I'm coming along. So you don't really see that sinful part of you, but no, we are sinners. Every single one of us. And without God's Son, Jesus, that's his name, we would still have that separation from God. And we would never have access to God. We couldn't, because God can't be around sin, and we're sinful. But Jesus came in John 3:16 and gave us that right and that privilege. It wouldn't even be possible because we have so much sins in our lives. It wouldn't even be an option. I'm going to close with this. So last time I was up here, if you guys remember on that guest speaker who was up here? No? All right. But last time I was up here, I talked about the importance of reading this book. Okay? Believe it or not, I want to close with the importance of reading this book. And I know you guys are all really busy, and I realize that you're all very important, so you don't have a lot of time. But God is not requiring that you read this all this week and have it memorized by next week. That's not what he's saying. He's never asked that. He just wants you to get to know him better by reading this little by little each and every day. Even if it's a chapter a day. In the video, what did it say? It takes 7 minutes, maybe, to read a chapter. And you can do that whenever. You can take breaks if you want. You can read it during commercials. We can pause it. You know, just get through it. Just read a little bit each and every day. And that's why I want to encourage you, and that's what we're going to stay up here all the time. We want to encourage you guys to read this. Because it's way more important than you even realize, especially if you haven't cracked it open. There's so much good stuff in it, and every single story in here points to Jesus Christ. You know, it's cool to think like these different stories are about like us, like David and Goliath is us overcoming the giants in our lives. Like that sounds really cool, but it's not. That story is pointing back to the glory of God, and that's what these stories are about. That's what every single story in the Bible is about. So get into it, and if you don't know where to start, that's cool. That's why we're doing this series. We're starting at the beginning. You know, and not the whole thing because Genesis drags on for 50 chapters, then you have Exodus, which is pretty good. Then you get into like Deuteronomies and all that, and those things drag. What we heard in the video, when you get to like, some of them are really out there. But they're still good. But read the first 10 chapters of Genesis. That's a really, really great place to start. After that, we'll go to the Gospels and learn a little bit more about Jesus Christ and why the Bible's written. But there's a lot of good stuff in there. And all that is in there is so we learn about the redeeming love of Jesus Christ. That's why we want to read the Gospels. That's why we want to read the Bible. So if you don't know where to start, ask that. If you don't, and after that, if you want to read more, get with one of your mentors, get with someone who leads a breakout group, one of your older friends or whatever, and find out, hey, what do you want to read? You know, and it's a lot easier when you are accountable to someone. You know, I'm in a couple different Bible studies, and I know I'm going to read before the Bible study because we're going to talk about it, right? And if you don't want to get stuck not reading it and be that guy who just sits there, you want to read it and participate. And even if you just read it out of obligation, you're still getting the word in, and God's still going to speak to you, I promise you. That's an absolute promise. So, I give you permission to forget everything that I said, if you want to. But listen to this next part. This is what I want you guys really to hear. Is that redeeming love of Jesus Christ. That's what the Bible's about. And that's what God wants you to know more than anything else, that God's redeeming love. No matter where you are in your life, no matter what kind of person you are, no matter what kind of sinner you are, no matter if you're just a tiny sinner or you think you're this like big deal sinner where God could never clean you because you're so dirty or whatever, which is absolutely false. It's the same thing. There's God's redeeming love in the Bible. So, get into it. Get into the Bible. And there's a lot of stuff that's important, but there's nothing more important than that one and only begotten Son. So, we're going to break up into our breakout groups in a little bit, and be really open and honest with your breakout leaders. This is the time for you guys to explore more, and with people that maybe know a little bit more about the Word, and you're going to be with people that feel just as awkward as you, but they want to talk about shit, talk about everything because they love you and because Jesus loves you. So, all right, will you guys pray with me as I close? Lord, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you for Renaissance and for Elevate. And for everything that you're doing at this church, Lord, and in this room. I thank you for each one of these kids and parents in this room, and for every one of the mothers, Lord. Thank you for everything that they do in our life, especially my mom, who's in the room. And remind us, as always, that you're with us, and that no matter what we're going through, Lord, that we can always run to you and chase after you, even if it's a full-out sprint. And thank you for these early stories of the Bible and all that we can learn from them. Thank you for the example of Adam and Eve and what we can learn from them, both good and bad, Lord. And we love you, and as we move to our breakout groups, Lord, just let us be open and honest, and as we discuss more about you. We love you. In our prayer. Amen.
Got a card this morning. I didn't say it. That means